Trump is not a perfect person. I did not vote for a perfect person. You did not vote when you voted for Joe Biden.
All right, breaking overnight, in an unprecedented move, President Trump announced he is firing Fed Governor Lisa Cook over allegations of mortgage fraud.
Quitting, and more quitting. MAGA Republicans are rushing for the exit to say they're not running for re-election.
Quitting, resigning, running for the exits. Across America, Republican leaders who once wrapped themselves in Donald Trump's banner of MAGA forever are quietly bowing out. They promised endless victories, yet now we see only retreats. Behind the bluster, a different story unfolds, one of red districts flipping blue, frustrated constituents demanding answers, and lifelong Republicans admitting their party has lost its way. In Nebraska and Iowa, where farming towns once stood as strongholds for conservative politics, the economic reality is hitting hard. Tariffs crush farmers, trade wars block markets, families wonder who will pay the bills while their leaders offer excuses. And now, one by one, those leaders are stepping aside. Congressman Don Bacon, Senator Joni Ernst, and others are signaling what many Republicans whisper but rarely admit. The so-called MAGA movement is tearing the party apart from the inside. This isn't just about political maneuvering. It's about the soul of a party and the direction of the nation. And as the old guard slips away, the question becomes, what tourhook comes next? The headlines look almost unbelievable. Long-standing Republican figures in deep red districts are announcing that they won't run again. For years, the GOP sold the story of invincibility under Donald Trump winning so much that, as Trump himself liked to say, Americans would get tired of winning. But what we see today isn't triumph, it's retreat. The first cracks became visible in the Midwest. Nebraska and Iowa, states that had been comfortable territory for Republicans, suddenly began showing signs of change. Special elections flipped districts that once seemed unshakably conservative. In Iowa's Senate district won a place that had voted for Trump by more than 11 points. Democrats managed to seize victory. To longtime Republican strategists, this was more than just a warning sign. It was a siren blaring in the night. Take Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska. Once considered a solid figure in the Republican lineup, Bacon openly admitted that his state is in a recession. Farmers in Nebraska and neighboring Iowa, he explained, are buckling under the pressure of tariff wars and collapsing markets. Their exports beef, popcorn, grain air, losing access to Europe and beyond. Fertilizer and herbicide costs are climbing, while commodity prices sink. For the communities that feed the nation, survival itself is on the line. And when farmers suffer, the politicians who promise to defend them have no place to hide. Bacon's response: to step aside. After 10 years in Congress, he announced, sometimes with tears in his eyes, that he would not seek re-election. The long hours, the endless campaigning, the constant fight to defend a party that no longer reflects his values, it was too much. He admitted that his passion was gone, that his fire in the belly to keep running simply wasn't there anymore. But there's more beneath the surface. Bacon also made clear that he no longer recognized his party. He spoke out in support of Ukraine, calling Russia's aggression a threat to global stability. He warned that if Ukraine fell, countries like Moldova and Georgia might be next, forcing NATO into an even more expensive confrontation with Putin. But in today's Republican Party, siding with Ukraine isn't loyalty, it's betrayal. For many of Trump's most loyal followers, praising Putin earns more applause than standing with America's allies. Bacon knew he couldn't survive in a party that now cheers for dictators while scorning democracy. If Don Bacon's exit shook Nebraska, Joni Ernst's announcement reverberated through Iowa. Once a rising Republican star, Ernst had built her reputation on tough talk, famously mocking government programs and making offhand remarks that shocked even her supporters. When constituents begged her to reconsider her votes that gutted Medicaid, Ernst coldly replied, "We're all going to die anyway." For families relying on Medicaid to keep premature babies alive, her words felt like a slap in the face. The backlash was swift. TAC ads flooded Iowa, showing Ernst's votes against healthcare contrasted with billion-dollar tax breaks for the wealthy. Parents confronted her at town halls, pleading with her to understand the life-or-death stakes of her policies. Ernst, visibly uncomfortable, brushed them off and walked away. Eventually, she tried to apologize, filming a strange video in a cemetery where she claimed she had been misunderstood. But by then, the damage was done. Her approval crumbled, and her political career never recovered. Ernst has now confirmed she will not seek re-election in 2026. To Republican loyalists, these exits look like surrender. To Democrats, they look like opportunity. In Iowa, two strong Democratic candidates, State Senator Zach Walz and State Representative Josh Turkar, already preparing to step into the void. Both men bring compelling personal stories and grassroots credibility. Walz has positioned himself as a reformer focused on fixing the economy and ending corruption, while Turk, who grew up with spina bifida and endured 21 surgeries before age 12, embodies resilience and grit. His story dragging his wheelchair upstairs to knock on doors during campaigns resonates deeply with voters across party lines. Meanwhile, other Republicans face humiliation at their own town halls. In Missouri, Representative Mark Alfred tried to defend Trump, only to be met with angry shouts of, "We don't want a dictator." In Alabama, Congressman Barry Moore literally ran out the back door to escape furious constituents chanting, "Shame on you." In Texas, Don Crenshaw was drowned out by boos from his own supporters. Even in deep red states, the MAGA brand is losing its shine. The common thread is clear. Republicans are not leaving because they want to. They're leaving because they have to. Their voters are restless, their base is fractured, and their ability to defend Trump's chaos is evaporating. Those who remain in office face the impossible task of appeasing both traditional conservatives and a radicalized MAGA wing that demands absolute loyalty. For figures like Don Bacon and Joni Ernst, stepping aside may feel like the only honorable option left. But for Democrats, these exits are a golden opportunity. With strong candidates waiting in the wings and voter frustration rising, seats once considered untouchable are suddenly competitive. And so, across Nebraska, Iowa, and beyond, a political shift is underway. Not with the thunder of a single election night, but with the slow, steady drip of resignations, apologies, and retreat. The so-called red wall that Trump promised to strengthen now shows cracks running deep through its foundation. And as more Republicans walk away, the question grows louder. Is this the beginning of the end for the MAGA movement, or just the calm before its next storm? The exits of Don Bacon and Joni Ernst were not isolated events. They were symptoms of a deeper illness spreading through the Republican Party. Across the country, the same story repeats. Politicians who once felt untouchable now face boos at their town halls, angry questions from their constituents, and the growing realization that Trump's movement is eating the party alive. Look at Missouri, where Representative Mark Alfred stood before a crowd in Harrisburg. He tried to defend Donald Trump, calling him a leader with the best interests of Americans at heart. But the crowd wasn't buying it. "We don't want a dictator," they shouted back, rejecting the image of Trump as a strongman. Alfred's attempt to pivot, asking sarcastically why they even showed up if they didn't want to hear his lies, only made things worse. This wasn't the friendly applause he had grown used to in Trump's America. It was open revolt from people who were supposed to be his base. The same humiliation played out in Alabama. Congressman Barry Moore, running for a Senate seat, couldn't even face his constituents. As voters demanded answers on tariffs and shouted questions about who actually pays the price for Trump's trade wars, Moore slipped out the back door like a fugitive. The chants of "shame on you" echoed long after he disappeared. This was Alabama state so reliably red that Democrats hadn't dreamed of competing seriously for years. Yet here was a Republican candidate too afraid to answer basic economic questions from his own supporters. Even in Texas, where the GOP once strutted with unshakable confidence, cracks showed. Representative Dan Crenshaw, a man once touted as a possible future party leader, found himself drowned out by boos from the very voters who had carried him into office. His carefully crafted image as a conservative warrior was crumbling before his eyes, replaced by the growing sense that loyalty to Trump mattered more than policy, more than service, more than truth. These moments are not just embarrassing clips on social media. They are signals. They reveal a Republican Party that no longer knows who it serves or what it stands for. Once, the GOP defined itself by limited government, free markets, and strong defense. Now its leaders stumble between defending tariffs that hurt farmers, excusing authoritarian rhetoric, and apologizing for policies that leave their constituents behind. And while Republicans falter, Democrats see opportunity. In Iowa, the contest to replace Joni Ernst has already begun. State Senator Zach Walz embodies a younger, more pragmatic generation of leadership. His campaign is framed not around ideology, but around fixing a broken economy and cleaning up corruption in Washington. He presents himself as a voice of change in a state tired of empty promises. Polls already suggest that Walz, or someone like him, could win statewide in 2026, a shocking development for a seat once considered safely Republican. Then there's State Representative Josh Turk, whose story reads like a modern parable of determination. Born with spina bifida, subjected to 21 surgeries before turning 12, Turk grew into not only a Paralympic gold medalist, but also a fierce advocate for people often ignored by the political system. When Medicaid privatization threatened the care of disabled Iowans, Turk ran for office in one of the reddest parts of the state and won. His approach is simple: hard work, face-to-face conversations, and a focus on kitchen table issues. Voters may not agree with every Democrat, he admits, but they can support a candidate who shows up, listens, and fights for them. Together, Walz and Turk represent more than just Iowa's future. They embody a broader shift in American politics. The idea that authenticity and grassroots determination can topple entrenched power, even in districts where one party has long reigned supreme. But Democrats cannot afford to grow complacent. The Republican Party may be divided, but it is not defeated. Trump's grip on the base remains strong, and his talent for weaponizing anger cannot be underestimated. If anything, the resignations and humiliations of GOP leaders may fuel the narrative that only Trump can fix the party, that only he has the strength to withstand the backlash that drove others into retreat. For some voters, the chaos itself becomes proof of his authenticity. This is the paradox of the moment. On one side, traditional Republicans step aside, warning of recession, trade wars, and lost values. On the other side, Trump and his loyalists tighten their hold, insisting that dissent is betrayal and compromise is weakness. Caught in the middle are millions of Americans who once voted red without hesitation, but now question what the party truly offers. And those Americans matter more than ever. Suburban voters in Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, and Texas are no longer guaranteed Republican loyalists. Farmers whose livelihoods are threatened by tariffs are listening when Democrats speak about trade and relief. Families who rely on Medicaid are watching carefully when politicians like Joni Ernst shrugged off their struggles. Every resignation, every awkward town hall, every backdoor escape chips away at the illusion of Republican dominance. The GOP once promised winning. Instead, it faces defections, embarrassments, and a wave of challengers ready to seize the moment. Whether the Democratic Party can fully capitalize on this remains to be seen, but one truth is clear: the Republican Party of today is not the party it was a decade ago. For voters, the choice ahead may not be about red versus blue, but about something deeper, about democracy versus authoritarianism, about competence versus chaos, about leaders who show up versus leaders who run away. And so, as Don Bacon spends his days with his grandchildren, as Joni Ernst prepares to fade from the political stage, and as others quietly bow out rather than face their constituents, America watches. The MAGA wave that once seemed unstoppable now leaves behind only wreckage, retreat, and regret. In that wreckage, a new political landscape is emerging, one where voters are more skeptical, more demanding, and perhaps more open to change than ever before. The red wall is cracking. The question is not whether it will fall, but when and what will rise in its place.